4 spine-chilling true autumn horror tales. Discover the sinister secrets of the cursed and haunted as the sun dipped below the horizon, wrapping Maplewood in eerie shadows. Jessica's cozy home turned dark. This Halloween season was meant to be filled with laughter and fun, but something was lurking, a chilling energy that crawled under her skin. While she rifled through her late grandmother's attic for decorations, she unearthed an old, dusty book. The cover was worn, hinting at dark tales woven with local folklore. A pang of excitement mixed with dread danced in her heart. What stories lay dormant within its yellowed pages? With her children, Ethan and Lily, nestled by the fireplace, they gathered around her as she cracked the book open. "Let us see what scary tales Grandma used to tell," she said, trying to mask her unease. The first tale unfurled. Speaking of spirits said to haunt Maplewood, a chilling wind seemed to echo through the air as Jason recounted tales of lost souls roaming the streets at night, seeking something they never found. At first, they chuckled nervously, but a tense silence fell as Jessica continued reading. Whispers danced in the corners of the room. Shadows flickered at the windows. From the peaceful suburb she once loved, something insidious crept in. Dark corners seemed to stretch further, drawing closer. Jessica's heart raced. She glanced at her kids, their wide eyes reflecting a childlike thrill that sent a shiver down her spine. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the last sliver of sunlight slipped away, the atmosphere thickened. Ethan and Lily began to squirm, their innocent giggles fading, replaced by hushed worry. As Jessica turned the page, she hesitated at a painting, a ghostly figure staring right out at her, eyes hollow and dark. The wind howled outside, rattling the window panes, and Jessica clutched the book tighter, heart thumping wildly. Outside, neighbors peeked through curtains, faces contorting, eyes filled with suspicion. Past conversations replayed in Jessica's mind, once simple and friendly, but now laced with hidden meanings. Why did old Mrs. Baker seem to linger too long on the porch? And what of the Johnsons, whose laughter seemed a bit too sharp, too disjointed? Darkness wrapped around them like a suffocating cloak. Jessica fought to stay rational, but when heavy thumps erupted from the attic above, she nearly dropped the book. The chill deepened, a cold sweat catching in the back of her neck. She peered at her children, them blissfully lost in sleep despite the growing terror. How different they looked now, so innocent, while shadows loomed over them all, hungry and waiting. She could feel it, something reached out with icy fingers, exploring her mind, feeding on fear. Just when Jessica thought she might find some relief, adrenaline spiked. She caught a glimpse of a figure in the hallway. Nothing more than a flicker, yet it flooded her with dread. Was it real? Or just another tale from the book, weaving through her distorted perception? Swallowing her panic, she stepped toward the dimly lit corridor. Would she dare confront the truth hidden in her family's past? Or would curiosity lead them deeper into the abyss, where every friendly face morphed into something far more sinister? The corridor stretched endlessly before Jessica, shadows clinging to the walls like dark apparitions. Her breath quickened. Each step felt weighted, as if the floorboards themselves conspired to keep her back. Ethan and Lily remained oblivious behind her, safe in their dreams, while dread tugged at Jessica, pulling her deeper into the unknown. "Hello?" she called out, voice trembling. The silence that answered was heavy, oppressive, amplifying the dull thumping that echoed from above. It was no longer a mere sound. It was a heartbeat, thrumming like a warning bell, a sinister rhythm keeping time with her racing pulse. As she approached the attic door, the air turned electric, crackling with an unseen energy. She hesitated. Was she ready to unveil whatever lay beyond? The mysterious book lay cold in her hands, the pages fluttering as if alive, urging her to proceed. A wave of unease washed over her. "It's just a story," she reminded herself, biting back the tremor in her voice. With a deep breath, Jessica reached for the doorknob. It was icy under her fingertips, sending a shiver up her spine. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. Dust motes swirled in the shaft of moonlight cutting through the darkness. The attic was cluttered with remnants of a life-lived old furniture draped in sheets and boxes stacked high as if preserving memories. Then she saw it, a family portrait, faded but familiar, a macabre tableau of smiles. The frame was cracked, edges splintered, but the eyes, they watched her. The eyes were not just a reflection of the past. They seemed to harbor a mystery, their gaze filled with longing. She felt their weight pressing down on her. Another thump echoed above, louder this time, shaking the very rafters. With every heartbeat, fear coursed through her. Was the house alive, or was it her imagination spiraling further into madness? "Mom." It was Ethan's voice, a soft whisper from the hallway, pulling her back momentarily from the brink of the chilling unknown. "Are you okay?" "Yes, sweetheart," she called back, though her voice trembled. "Just stay there, okay?" Determined to uncover the source of the noise, Jessica's eyes swept the attic. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she caught another flicker. This time, it wasn't just a shadow. It was the outline of a figure moving, retreating into the darkest corner of the attic. Jessica's heart raced. Her instincts screamed at her to run, to protect her children, but curiosity gnawed at her. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice cracking. Silence enveloped her again, thick and suffocating. She took a cautious step forward, the wooden floor creaking underneath her. The figure seemed to pulse with life and shadow, daring her to draw closer. In that moment, she felt a cold breath against her neck, the scent of decay and despair swirling around her. Panic gripped her, and she flipped her gaze back towards the door. "Get away," she shouted, her voice echoing in the confined space. But the figure remained, its edges flickering like a dying flame. Jessica's hand trembled as she reached for the light switch, praying for illumination, for clarity. Just as she flicked the switch, the power surged for an instant, but then darkness. The lights failed, and the figure lunged. Jessica stumbled back, heart thundering, weaving through piles of forgotten memories as it closed in. A desperate thought struck her. Was it after the book? The book that contained their family's secrets, cryptic tales woven into reality? Jessica scrambled to retrieve it, hands shaking, just as the dark figure loomed closer, its intent clear and terrifying. In the suffocating darkness, she felt entrapped in a sinister game that went far beyond mere stories. She needed to escape, but how could she flee from something that knew her fear, that fed on it? The door slammed shut behind her. Panic rose as screams echoed in her mind, drowning out everything else. Faced with an impossible choice, would she confront this lurking horror in the attic, or flee to the safety of her children, untouched by the shadow's grasp? As she clutched the book tightly, every instinct told her to run, but something deep inside screamed for the truth. What lay behind the darkness? What terror awaited at the edge of knowledge? Before she could decide, the figure drew nearer, whispering her name with chilling familiarity. Jessica's heart sank. Surely, this was not a tale at all but the waking nightmare that her grandmother had warned her of. What had she awakened by reading that cursed book? The darkness swirled around like a storm, and just as she looked into its depths, everything went black. Jessica gasped as the blackness enveloped her. It wasn't just a lack of light. It was a suffocating void that snaked around her, seeping into every corner of her mind. The oppressive silence pressed against her ears, making her feel like she was drowning in a dark ocean. When her vision returned, she found herself in a vast, empty space. The attic vanished as if swallowed whole. The air was heavy with a putrid odor, a blend of mildew and something else rotten, like the aftermath of a festering wound. She could hear faint whispers, echoing words she couldn't quite make out, swarming around her like flies, each syllable a brush against her sanity. "Where are you?" she called out, her voice wobbly, barely above a whisper. The shadows around her responded with a chilling laughter, low and haunting, reverberating through the emptiness. It felt as if they were mocking her fear, feeding off the terror that gripped her heart. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Figures coalesced in the gloom, each one etched in shadows and despair. They looked familiar, faces twisted in grief and anguish, all staring at her with pleading eyes, her own family. Jessica couldn't recognize them fully, distorted memories pouring from the depths of her mind like a broken dam. Were they real? Or merely reflections of her guilt? No, this can't be happening, she screamed, feeling the weight of her heart shatter before her. But the figures remained, their silent screams woven into the air, pulling at her edges, threatening to unravel her. Then, the whispers grew louder, coalescing into a coherent voice, a deep, guttural sound that sent chills racing down her spine. You called us, Jessica. You opened the door. What do you want? Panic surged through her. She backed away, frantically searching for an escape, her trembling hands clutching the cursed book even tighter. We want what is ours, the voices chorused as one, their tones blending into a cacophony. You've unleashed memories best left buried. Secrets that should never see the light. No. The denial clawed at her throat. Jessica's mind spiraled as her memories unfurled years of pain, sorrow, the tragic losses that had darkened her family tree. Each tragedy whispered to her through the shadows, twisting the knife deeper in an ache she had tried so hard to forget. A monstrous figure emerged from the darkness, towering above her like a nightmare given flesh. It was the essence of her fears, an embodiment of grief and guilt, stretching a hand toward her with cruel intent. You have taken our stories, Jessica. Now you must pay the price. Desperation coursed through her veins. She could either surrender or fight back. I didn't mean to, her voice faltered as the truth struck her anew. She had been drawn to the book, desperate to uncover the dark narratives that had tethered her family in torment. Choices have consequences, the creature hissed, its ghastly breath washing over her. You have to choose. Keep seeking the past, or save your children. The weight of her decision bore down like an anvil. The darkness pulsed around her, alive and threatening to engulf everything she loved. Would her thirst for knowledge be worth the loss of her family's safety? Then, almost instinctively, she felt the book's pages flutter against her palm once more. This time, they shimmered with a strange light, offering flickers of hope amidst a sea of despair. Something deep within her urged her to read aloud, to confront the darkness with her own story, a story that had not yet reached its end. I will not be your pawn, Jessica shouted, her voice echoing defiantly as she opened the book. Words spilled from her lips, powerful and resonant, illuminating the shadows with a fierce glow. With every word, the chilling grip loosened just a little, as if the very tale bound within the pages could fight back against the nightmare that threatened to consume her. But as the shadows writhed in agony, another sound broke through the frantic pounding of tiny fists against the attic door. Mom! Mom! Terror clawed at her throat. How much time did she have? She could feel the creature's rage building, its form writhing and shifting as it struggled against the light. She had to finish her story. Would she forge a path to salvation or doom her whole family? The answer hung heavy in the air, and before she could grasp it, the dark figure lunged forward once more. What awaited her on the other side of that door? What consequence would this moment of defiance awaken? The shadows spiraled closer, as Jessica's voice rose over the chaos, desperate to break free from the curse she had unwittingly unleashed. The figure lunged, and Jessica barely managed to dodge. She stumbled back, her heart racing, the terror gnawing at her insides. You don't own me, she yelled, feeling the heavy weight of her words echo into the abyss. The glow from the book flickered like a dying flame, yet she wouldn't let it extinguish. Speak your truth. Then, the creature croaked, its voice now a dissonant echo of her own fears. Let us see if your pathetic words can shield you from the memories that haunt you. Her trembling fingers brushed the remaining pages, barely grasping the storyline behind every word. As she read aloud, the figures of her family writhed, their twisted faces contorted in a silent scream. The words she spoke burned with her emotions: regret, anger, sorrow, each one fueling the bright light that momentarily staved off the encroaching shadows. Long before your stories, there were tales of laughter, love, and light, she declared, a frantic hope blossoming in her chest. But the dark entity, undeterred, surged forward, the shadows hungry to reclaim what they had lost. The pounding on the door intensified. Mom, we can't get in, cried a voice she recognized as her daughter's. The urgency in that small voice sent a fresh wave of panic through her. The voices of her family in the shadows were losing form, distorting, as if the light was disrupting their hold on reality. "Open the door," Jessica begged the figures, her panic rising. But they merely stared with hollow eyes, beckoning her back into the depths of despair. "You are the key to their salvation," the creature hissed. "But first, you must face the truth of your own darkness." The air shimmered around her, and Jessica could feel cold sweat trickling down her back. She had to confront the memories that bound her here, the painful loss of her father, the guilt she felt for her mother. Each loss and tear shaped a tale she had tried to bury. "Enough," she shouted, but every scream only made the darkness wrap tighter around her. The air thickened, suffocating, while the shadows laughed, taunting her with the weight of her choices. Jessica's mind raced. If she had the power to unlock these memories, maybe she could rewrite their fate. "These memories, they don't define me," she declared, the words forceful and full of wild resolve. Suddenly, the shadows shuddered, as if her proclamation struck a blow. The creature twitched, its form flickering, as if the light was beginning to strip away the layers of its ghastly facade. "You're wrong, Jessica," it shrieked with fury. "Every choice leads you here." In that moment, Jessica glimpsed a flicker of the door behind the creature, a fragile hope. Yet, as one last desperate scream from her kids echoed through the thick burden of darkness, the figure lunged again. "Fight!" A voice echoed from within her, reminiscent of her mother's unwavering strength. "You're stronger than this." With a surge of newfound courage, she swung the book in front of her like a shield. "I will rewrite this tale," she vowed, her words filling the air like wildfire, igniting the shadows around her. The entity shrieked, its body contorting in response to the light spilling from the book. Jessica poured her heart into every word, breathing life into her family's stories, creating a barrier between them and the consuming darkness. But just as it seemed to work, her daughter screamed again, "Mom, we are losing, we need you." Jessica felt her heart tear. Could she save them through this? Or would this gamble send them deeper into despair? The air thickened with uncertainty, leaving her breathless as she stood there, a bridge between two worlds fighting to save what she loved. The shadows coiled tighter, and the creature surged once more, furious and relentless. "Will you become your own undoing?" it challenged. As Jessica clung to the hope rising anew and the words leaving her lips, she felt the fabric of reality tremble. What would happen when she released the truth that had chained her all along? Time was slipping. Would the door hold against the entity's wrath, or would everything unravel into darkness? The true horror of her choice was still unfolding. Jessica's breath came in sharp gasps as the shadows tightened their grip, a vice of despair squeezing the very life from her. Her heart pounded, racing in tandem with the echoes of her children's cries. They were losing her, fading into the suffocating dark, and it felt as if each second brought her closer to an irrevocable fall. "Speak my truth," she whispered, the fragile thought threading through her mind like a beam of light. The words felt foreign, almost sacred, like an incantation that might illuminate the depths of her darkness. She hesitated only a moment, searching for the right memories, those pieces of her past she had long buried beneath regret and sorrow. "No," the creature roared, its grotesque form writhing dangerously close, the stench of decay pouring from its jagged maw. "You'll only feed the darkness. Embrace your weaknesses, or they'll consume you whole." Jessica clenched her jaw, refusing to back down. "You think you hold the power? You think you control my memories?" A defiant surge of strength flooded through her, igniting a flicker of light deep within her chest. "Memories don't own me. They're just stories, and I will tell them my way." With every word she spoke, the shadows flickered, caught in a dance of rage and chaos. She focused on her father's laughter, the warmth of her mother's embrace, the smell of Sunday morning pancakes, the comfort of home. Those moments poured from her lips with an urgency that made the walls shudder. "Mom, please." Her daughter's voice punched through the thick darkness, a piercing plea that stole the breath from Jessica's lungs. The creature shrieked, lashing out in fury, but Jessica felt the door behind it pulse with energy, ever so slightly ajar, bolstered by her determination. "Just a little more," she urged herself, her confidence growing. "I am stronger." But just as the warmth of hope spread like wildfire, a surge of icy dread swept through her. A shadow from her past unfurled before her, an image of her mother in her frail last moments. The guilt twisted like a knife within her. "I couldn't save you," she breathed, tears welling in her eyes. "No, you don't get to turn that guilt against me," Jessica called fiercely, her voice shaking the very ground beneath her. In that moment, she realized the truth: the memories were merely reflections of her own fears. She held the pen, the stories were hers to rewrite. The darkness shuddered again, the entity's form flickering before her like a dying ember. "You cannot escape," it hissed, each word dripping with malice. "You will always come back to the suffering. Not if I confront it head-on," she yelled, channeling the raw pain and love that had filled her life. "This isn't just about me. I fight for my family." Clutching the book tightly, she poured her heart into the words. Light burst forth, brilliant and fierce, pushing against the encroaching shadows. Jessica felt the walls tremble beneath the weight of her declaration, and the echoing laughter of her loved ones filled the air. But the creature bared its fangs, howling in defiance. The shadows writhed, fighting back. "You will break. Your truth will never protect you." Jessica's eyes widened as she grasped the final pieces, the voice of her daughter, urging her on. She wasn't just fighting for her own survival, but for every moment they could still share. "No, I will rewrite our ending." As she released the final words, a blinding light erupted from the book, surging toward the creature. But just then, from the depths of the darkness, a chilling whisper reached her ears, but at what cost? The world convulsed. The shadows recoiled, but the light wavered, flickering perilously. Jessica's blood ran cold as she caught a glimpse of something lurking behind the veil, something far more sinister than the creature before her. She gasped, utterly frozen, her heart pounding fiercely. What had she awakened? Would the truth she fought for save her family, or unleash an even greater darkness? The answer lurked just out of reach, closing in fast. Jessica stood on a razor's edge, teetering between salvation and doom. The question hung in the air, heavy with dread. Would she embrace the looming horror, waiting to be unleashed? The light lashed out, fierce and wild, but it struggled against the suffocating shadows. Jessica felt the surge of energy drain as the murmurs of darkness threatened to envelop her again. She had come so close, only to realize she could be making things worse. "Please stay back," she shouted, desperation lacing every syllable. But the creature loomed closer, its twisted face stretching into a grotesque grin, revealing rows of jagged teeth. The book quivered in her hands as if sensing the danger. That whisper echoed in her mind again. What cost? The realization hit her like a punch. What if each memory she summoned took a piece of her soul? What if they demanded something in return? "Mom, don't." Her daughter's voice was a shriek, piercing through the haze. Jessica's heart seized. The creature lunged, shadowy claws aimed at her throat. She spun, her instinct driving her to flee, the beam of light flickering frantically like a candle caught in a tempest. She ran for the door, each step filled with an eerie mix of hope and fear. The shadows clawed at her heels, desperate to drag her back. As she reached for the doorknob, she hesitated. What lay beyond? Light promised safety, but what if the shadows were right? What if by escaping, she condemned her family to an even darker fate? She had to know. With a deep breath, she turned back and faced the creature. "You don't have power over me," it hissed, a sound that slithered through the darkness like a snake. "And yet, you are bound to your own fear. Your truth may haunt you, Jessica." In that chilling moment, Jessica felt the shadows shift, their sneering faces morphing into the faces she loved. Her mother, her father, her daughter. Each one taunted her, drawing her into a web of vines made of regret and fear. Suddenly, a new voice broke through the din. "Mom, we're waiting for you." It was her youngest, the voice sweet but laced with urgency. Jessica's heart pounded. The book became warm in her grasp, a pulsing reminder of her power. She brought it close to her heart. "Here goes nothing," she whispered, determination hardening her resolve. She began to speak again, memories flooding back like a rushing tide: her daughter's first steps, the sound of her laughter, the unbreakable bond they shared. As she spoke, visions illuminated the dark, wonderful, vibrant moments transformed into shimmering light. The creature recoiled, the brightness burning its form. Jessica felt the shadows unravel, but glimpses of that deeper darkness still lurked. Every story she shared felt like a weapon, yet the threat skyrocketed from the shadows as shrieks echoed around her. "You will pay. What will you take from me?" she screamed, her voice trembling as she pushed her memories into the light, facing both fear and the whispers of the dark entity. The air thickened, tasting of grief and despair. Just then, the ground trembled beneath her feet, sending a jolt of pure terror through her veins. The echoes of her family's laughter began to fade, replaced by an eerie silence. Suddenly, a figure emerged from behind the shadows, cloaked in darkness, waiting beyond the flickering light. Jessica's breath hitched as it stepped into view. It was a face she recognized all too well, twisted and cruel. "Welcome back to me," it sneered, voice full of malice. "Did you think you could escape your past?" Jessica's heart raced. What she'd awoken wasn't simply a creature, it was a part of her she had feared to confront. The shadows surging around her were not just memories, they were the memories she couldn't let go. She had awakened something far more terrifying than she ever imagined, something that had been waiting, lurking in the corners of her mind. What would she sacrifice to confront it? Terror coiled around her as she prepared for a dark revelation. Each moment drew her closer to the ultimate confrontation, one that would change everything. Would she accept this truth, or would it consume her entirely? The darkness urged her to turn away, but she couldn't. She had to know. She had to face her deepest fears, and what if that cost was everything? The figure in front of her grinned maliciously, the familiar features distorted by a darkness that reached into Jessica's core. The air crackled with tension, and she felt her heart knocking violently against her ribs. "You," she stammered, realizing the face belonged to her mother, yet so twisted, so painfully hollow. "You died." "Did I?" The apparition taunted, eyes glinting like shards of broken glass. "You think you can just push me aside? Oh, my sweet Jessica, you've hidden this part of yourself away for too long." The shadows writhed, thrumming with energy, and Jessica felt their pull tightening around her ankles. The memories she had conjured, moments of joy, now seemed to burn with loss. Her mother, the real one, had left the world, but this creature thrived on her regret. "No," Jessica shouted, shaking her head. "You're not my mother." The thing before her laughed, a sound that echoed through the darkness, chilling her to the bone. "You've buried me, just like you buried the pain. But buried doesn't mean gone. I wait in the dark, growing stronger each day you refuse to remember." With each word, the shadows thickened, tension building as though the darkness itself had formed, slithering and swaying like a living creature. Jessica felt the book in her hand pulse, an urgent reminder. If she could just remember the good, the nights of storybooks, warm embraces, and laughter echoing through the house, it could fight back. But those memories were tethered to her sorrow. What would it take to reach them? She took a shaky breath, her voice trembling but resolute. "You can't have me. I'll fight you." The air tasted bitter as the creature lunged forward, darkness reaching out like fingers scrabbling for her skin. Jessica cast her memories into the light, envisioning every happy moment, family dinners, vacations, and her daughter's laughter illuminating the void. "We're together. We'll always be together," she yelled. For a heartbeat, the light flared brighter, blasting away the shadows creeping towards her. The faces of her loved ones shimmered behind her eyelids, sparkling like diamonds. But just as the warmth enveloped her, the darkness writhed and pulsed outward, swallowing the glimmers of hope whole. "Fool!" The creature's voice dripped with venom. "You think so little of the cost? It all has a price. Every memory, every sweet thought. Your dreams will be my feast." Jessica staggered back as agony pierced through her chest, a deep ache that made it hard to breathe. It felt as though her heart was being dragged toward the abyss, almost as if it too was being consumed. The walls felt like they were closing in, the flickering light warring against the encroaching shadows. Her grip on the book tightened. "I'd trade anything to keep them safe," she gasped, terror slithering deeper. "Anything?" It echoed, a twisted smile stretching across its features. "Then let us see how far you're willing to go." The ground trembled, the shadows convulsing with renewed energy, the air thickening with anticipation. Jessica felt her resolve waver. She could lose herself entirely. Suddenly, she heard a whisper, soft yet clear, like a faint melody in the storm. "Mom, we believe in you," her daughter's voice pierced through the darkness, rekindling her spirit. Jessica straightened, steeling herself against dread. "I'll face you," she shouted defiantly, ready to confront the nightmare, the truth of her past, and the price she might have to pay. As she took that fateful step forward, a crack split the ground beneath her, dark and yawning. And from it, shadows coiled upward with choking anticipation. "Let us begin," the creature hissed, its whispering laughter echoing like a sharp blade in the night. What sacrifice lay ahead, and could she confront the shadows without losing everything? Jessica felt herself teeter on the edge of an abyss, her breath hitching as the ground darkened and the creature twisted closer. The shadows pooled around her feet like black ink, eager to pull her down, deeper into the darkness that whispered promises of despair. She could almost feel the weight of those promises, cold and suffocating. "No," she gasped, clenching the book tightly, the only tether to her memories that felt fragile, like a flickering flame in a storm. "I am not done fighting." The creature's laughter sent shivers down her spine, a cruel symphony that twisted her insides. "Fight all you want, Jessica. Each memory you conjure, each hope you cling to will only strengthen me. Your desperate love, it feeds my hunger." With every syllable, the shadows expanded, a silken tide that glided over the jagged ground, undulating like a beating heart. They were alive, hungry, clawing toward her. And with every second, her resolve began to fray, the walls of her mind buckling under the weight of her fears. "Mom, please," her daughter's voice echoed faintly from the distance. Jessica felt tears prick her eyes. The pain of her loss was raw, a gaping wound that refused to heal. She remembered that bright smile, the way her daughter giggled at the simplest jokes. Those memories seemed so distant, swallowed whole by the suffocating dark. Taking a breath that felt as sharp as glass, Jessica focused. "I want to let you take them. You're nothing but a shadow of what has been lost." She stepped forward, pouring everything she had into her words. The shadows recoiled slightly, hissing in agitation, as if her defiance was something they had never encountered before. For a moment, hope flickered within her, a beacon cutting through the thickest night. She thought of her daughter, of the gentle way her hand fit into hers, grounding her. But the creature surged again, enacting its wrath like a tempest. "You cannot unearth the past without consequence. Every memory I let slip through your fingers demands a toll. What do you value more, Jessica? Your fragile dreams, or the truth lurking beneath?" The ground trembled, fissures cracking wider, as if opening a gateway to a hell deeper than any sleep's nightmare. Jessica was frozen, staring into the void where shadows thrummed with life, waiting for her answer. It was a gamble, a question that clawed at her instinct to survive. "How far are you willing to go to protect your loved ones?" It murmured, its voice a silken hiss laced with mockery and temptation. "Let us find out, shall we?" Suddenly, the air pulsed, and she found herself lost in a whirlwind of memories. They flashed before her like a film on fast-forward: her mother's laughter, the warmth of her arms, the sweet scent of her presence. But there, too, were the ugly moments, the regrets that haunted her, the shouting, the silence that followed her mother's passing. Each shred of emotion echoed in her ears, a haunting reminder of battles fought and lost. "No!" Jessica screamed, covering her ears, but the echoes continued, drowning out her defiance, dragging her back to the abyss. She felt her strength dissipating, dreams slipping like sand through her fingers. As she stumbled, it took hold of her, pulling Jessica toward its relentless hunger. "You wanted to face your fears, sweet daughter. All of them, they await you. Can you accept what must be done?" The shadows beckoned, wrapping around her. Panic gripped Jessica, her heart racing as she felt the truth of her own darkness whispering close, urging her to surrender. "Remember your joy?" the creature mocked. "Who would you sacrifice for happiness? What will you give up to save your little girl?" In that moment, everything froze, splintering into 1,000 choices. Time stretched as she fought against the pull, her heart and mind wrestling with the decision hanging like a guillotine above her. And then, out of the depth of despair, something clicked. "I will fight," she shouted, choking back tears. "I would sacrifice anything, even you." A silence plunged into the chaos, and the darkness recoiled, trembling in confusion. "Then let the game begin," it whispered softly, this time with a hint of alarm. Jessica felt the ground rumble beneath her, anticipation crackling as reality twisted, transforming into an endless night filled with tangled threads of light and shadow. Would her fight ignite a true battle, or was this merely the beginning of her descent into darkness? The ground heaved as shadows slithered away from Jessica, each tendril unraveling like a scared child retreating into the dark. But it was brief. An accelerating heartbeat filled the void, a silence so thick that she could taste it. She stood there, breath shallow, eyes wide, unsure of what had just changed, but acutely aware that the thing before her had not been vanquished, merely disrupted. "Do you feel that?" It was a sultry whisper, wrapping around her like a familiar scent, one that sent a chill down her spine. "The darkness has not disappeared. It is merely waiting." Jessica clenched the book harder, a shield against the piercing chill of despair that pulled at her mind. She knew now what lay ahead was a game of revelation and sacrifice, not just against the creature before her, but within her own fractured heart. The shadows began to swirl again, thickening into a vortex, each black tendril coiling towards her like 1,000 angry serpents. Closing her eyes, Jessica envisioned her daughter's face, so beautiful and bright, the memory a dazzling star in her mind. But as she pictured her, the creature found a crack in her heart. "Tell me, Jessica," it hissed, each word slithering through the air like venom. "How hard will you fight for a ghost of a memory? Would you exchange your past for the chance to see her smile again?" The thought prickled, begging her to reconsider. It wasn't just her daughter, it was her mother, her friends, every moment stolen by the creeping entropy of time. "No," she shouted, desperation slicing through the weight pressing down on her. "I can't trade what I am for what I lost. I choose to fight." Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, momentarily agitated as if her defiance rattled their very essence. Jessica seized the moment, racing forward, grasping the edges of reality as she pulled herself deeper into the fray, the heart of the darkness. Every pulse felt like a strike against her will, a thunderous reminder of her fears. She had to forge ahead, confront what lurked in the abyss without looking away. "What if I told you that your love was the key?" The creature crooned, a seductive promise trapped within a snare of malevolence. "The very love that nourishes me can turn into your light, if only you admit the truth within yourself." The shadows shifted, revealing images of her daughter's laughter, the fleeting shadow of her mother whispering words of comfort. Each moment flicked like a film reel presenting her choices, coaxing her to choose despair. But Jessica felt embers igniting within her, a fierce acceptance of the pain and love combined, transforming into fierce determination. "Let them go," she cried. "They are not yours to use against me." The creature recoiled, its form twisting painfully as it absorbed her defiance. But Jessica could feel the weight of its heavy gaze. The mist of shadows began to stutter, and for the first time, she saw fear reflected back. "Courage? Is that what you think you hold?" It mocked, but there was an edge of uncertainty now, fraying at the seams. "What will you sacrifice for this courage?" Ice seized Jessica's heart as a wave of realization washed over her. The shadows pulsed like living fragments of her very soul, memories clawing at her. If she didn't cut the bond, there would be no escape. But the thought of doing so terrified her. "What will you give up?" The creature pressed, its tone dipping low, almost a sultry challenge laced with immediate danger. "Everything has a price." Jessica, her breath turned shallow, the chamber of choices filling the air, suffocating yet intoxicating. A sudden surge of strength coursed through her. She would find a way to turn this darkness back, even if it meant risking herself. In that moment of stillness, when a sliver of hope hung in the air, the shadows surged, escaping her grip with unrelenting wrath. Jessica steeled herself as the ground lurched and cracks spread. Beneath her feet was a chasm of memories lost and reality twisted, threatening to devour her whole. "Are you willing to face the truth?" The shadows roared. "Or are you simply meat for my hunger?" As the shadows began to rise around her, a haunting realization settled deep within her chest. She was not alone in her fears. They were alive, and they had chosen her. Would she succumb to despair and let the darkness claim her, or could she unearth a way to reclaim what still remained? The answer lay within the void, and it was closing in fast. The darkness pulsated around Jessica, swirling like a vortex hungry for her despair. Shadows reached out like thin tendrils, gripping her ankles, threatening to drag her into their suffocating embrace. Jessica's heart pounded furiously. Each beat echoed through the tumult around her, resonating with the urgency that clawed at her chest. "Face your truth," the sinister voice echoed, reverberating through the shadows. "What are you willing to give up for your child? What sacrifices are you ready to make?" Jessica felt a swell of anxiety rise in her throat as the creature loomed ever closer, its twisted visage distorting her memories into images filled with sorrow and grief. "I won't let you take me," she shouted defiantly, her words punctuated with resolve. She squeezed the book tighter, its worn cover a reminder of every family story she cherished. "You think that book holds the key? It binds you to the past, Jessica," the creature hissed, twisting the air around her. "Embrace those memories, and I will feast on your pain. But resist me, and you will lose everything." Her breath quaked as the shadows surged forward, whispering haunting memories from her past. Images of her mother laughing turned cold, her father's love replaced with regret. "Face the darkness," they cried, pulling her into a nightmare of sorrow. But deep within, a spark refused to extinguish. Jessica manifested the happiest memories in vivid detail, clinging to the light they brought forth. "I choose love," she screamed, forcing her voice through the weight of despair. Memories of her daughter's laughter ignited her spirit, shooting through her veins like a wildfire. "I will fight for them." The shadows recoiled. She could see it now, a crack of light in the abysmal darkness. The creature paused, visibly shaken. "You think love can save you?" "Yes," she cried, feeling the weight of determination lift her spirits. "Love is stronger than any shadow you can conjure. It will guide me home." With each spoken word, she felt the waves of light breaking through, dispelling the suffocating gloom. The pull of the darkness weakened, and the creature began to writhe in indecision, unsure of how to respond. "If love is your strength, then what will you sacrifice?" it asked, desperation tightening its voice, a flicker of doubt piercing through its malice. "Will you let go of those treasured memories? All you hold dear to save your child? Stop trying to manipulate me," Jessica shouted. "You don't own my memories or dictate my worth." The shadows continued to shimmer and flicker, lashing out at her, but she stood firm against their onslaught. Jessica opened the book, pouring her heart and energy into her words, weaving a story filled with defeat and triumph, pain and joy. "No more. I reclaim what is mine. I will no longer live in shadows." Light erupted from the pages, enveloping her in warm waves. The darkness began to melt away, seeping into the light like oil dispersing in water. The cries of her loved ones filled the air, resonating with joy and laughter that pushed back against the encroaching despair. "Mom, we're here." Her children's voices rang clear, strong, and steady. The shadows shrieked, their forms twisting into chaotic shapes, desperately trying to maintain grip on the remnants of their power. Jessica felt her family's love surge around her, lifting her, redefining her reality, and in that moment, she understood. The creature was feeding not just on her regrets, but on the notion that she must bear her burdens alone. But she was not alone. Love tied her to her family. It was the thread that could sew the frayed edges of their memories together. "Together," she shouted, raising the glowing book high. "Together, we stand against despair." And as the shadows lunged one last time, Jessica embraced the light that flowed from the book, pushing fiercely against the pull of the darkness. The swirling void shuddered and fractured, splitting into countless streams of chaos before collapsing inward. Light surged forth, banishing the terrors with a powerful wave. In an explosion of warmth, the dark entity screamed, dissolving into nothingness, leaving behind only the whisper of its defeat. Jessica gasped, and the attic reformed around her, vibrant and alive, filled with hope instead of despair. The door swung open, the outlines of her children standing brightly in the doorway, eyes wide with wonder. "Mom!" they cried, and she rushed into their arms, pulling them close as they embraced her tightly. "I'm here, I'm so sorry," she murmured, heart swelling with relief and gratitude. Jessica looked back at the attic, finally understanding it wasn't the hauntings of her past that needed exorcising. It was the acceptance of those memories. They were not curses, but parts of her story, her family's story. As they stepped back into the living room, laughter filled the space, warm and inviting like the flickering firelight. The book, now closed on the table, lay silent, its power woven back into her heart, a reminder of their strength together. Outside, the cold wind blew gently, the whispers of autumn carrying away the weight of fear. Jessica looked at her children, their smiles blazing, and she knew that the shadows would never claim them again. Together, they would write their own tales, moving forward, anchored firmly in love, each memory embraced, no longer a burden but a source of strength. And as they gathered for the rest of that Halloween night, a renewed spirit filled Maplewood, proving that love shone brighter than any darkness ever could. If you enjoyed this finale and want more stories packed with emotion and excitement, you need to subscribe now. Don't let another moment slip by without hitting that bell to get all future exclusive tales. Smash the like button to help feed the algorithm and keep these stories alive. I want to hear from you, so fill the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You know that true fans always support their favorite channels, so let us keep the wheel turning.